We're at the Vancouver Resource Investment Conference 2018. I've got Peter Schiff from Europe Pacific Capital and Schiff Gold. And I want to talk about the economy here. Peter, thanks for joining me.
Oh, my pleasure.
Okay, dollars in decline. Dow's setting new records. Gold's in a decent zone. You turn on Fox Business, you'd think we're in the roaring 20s. Some tells me that that's not how you see it.
Well, you know, the roaring 20s didn't actually end very well, right? Because we had the stock market crash and the Great Depression. So in that sense, maybe they're right, except it's not the early 1920s, it's the late 1920s. But also the US economy is in much worse shape than it was in the 1920s. So what we're heading for is going to be something much, much worse than the Depression. In fact, the irony of it is, if you look at the last 10 years of economic growth, or the economy actually grew slower than it did during the Depression, if you aggregate it. So we've kind of been in a slow rolling depression for a while. The thing is, Trump hasn't changed that, right? It's actually going to get worse, and it's not Trump's fault, other than the fact that he's simply doing what everybody else did. So it's his fault in that he's just doing more of the same, but he's going to get the blame for it because the voters are going to think that something has changed under Trump, because they're going to think, well, he cut taxes and he screwed the economy up. But the economy was screwed up before he was elected, and unfortunately it's going to get a lot worse, which is why I don't think he's going to get reelected.
Yeah, and you served with Ron Paul. You're basically his financial.
Well, I was
you're in that, yeah.
To his campaign in 2008. That was kind of it. Other than that, I mean, we're friendly, but I didn't work for. He didn't pay me. I was just, I was just an advisor on his 2008 campaign.
So I'm with you 1,000%. Trump ran on a little different deal here about the globalists, about central bankers, and all that. Like you said, he's kind of reversed course, and he's owning this bubble. So this bubble obviously has to go at some point. What's going to trigger this thing? Rates?
Well, he owns everything. He owns the bubble economy. He owns the bubble in the stock market, because according to Trump, everything is now great. All the problems that he criticized as a candidate, somehow they're all gone. Everything is great. All of a sudden, the unemployment numbers are legitimate. They were fake when he was running for office. Now, all of a sudden, we're supposed to believe them just because he's the president, right? So, but we are headed for a major economic crisis. It will make the 2008 financial crisis look like a Sunday school picnic. The similarity will be capitalism will get the blame, just like it did last time. Bush got the blame because he was in the White House. It was Greenspan that really created the problem, much more so than Bush, just like Bernanke and Yellen have inflated the bubble that Trump had inherited. But he's going to get the blame when it pops, right? All the people that voted for him that were so enthusiastic because he promised everything. Remember, you always want to under-promise and over-deliver. Trump has overpromised, and he's going to deliver nothing. He's going to deliver pain and misery to so many people who voted for him. Remember the misery index that we had during Jimmy Carter? That's what's going to come back. I think that the Democrats are going to use the misery index against Trump and the Republicans in 2020, and that's going to pave the way for a real socialist like Bernie Sanders, or maybe somebody to the left of him, to win, right? And that means all those temporary tax cuts, or all those permanent tax cuts, are temporary, because they're all going to end in 2021 when the Democrats have both houses of Congress and the White House, right? They're going to jack taxes up, but it's going to be a mess when they come in. They're just going to make it worse. But I mean, the market's going lower, but more importantly than that, it's the dollar, it's the bond market, it's what's going to happen to the American standard of living, it's what's going to happen to consumer prices. I mean, people think, oh, we didn't have any inflation. We created all this money and there was no inflation. They're wrong. The money creation was the inflation. It's just that the inflation showed up in financial assets first. Well, that's just a temporary parking place. All that inflation is going to show up at the gas station, at the grocery store. Right? It's going to be in your rent. It's going to be, all that is coming. It's just there was a longer lag. There's always a lag between printing money and rising prices. This time we printed a lot of money, and so we had an even longer lag. But we're going to get hit with a tsunami of price increases, and it's too late to get that genie back in the bottle.
Yeah, I agree. What could be done, though? I mean, if you got called into the game here, Schiff, fix this, what would you recommend? If he's listening right now, what do you tell 45?
Well, look, I wish that he would have done it on day one. I mean, what I would have done if I was elected president, I would have leveled with the American public on Inauguration Day. I would have said, look, this economy is a mess. Here's how it's been screwed up by the central bankers and by big government. And you know what? We need to bite the bullet. We can't kick the can down the road anymore. We have to, swallow some bitter tasting medicine. But if we do the right things, then America can be great again. But in order to be great again, here's what we have to do. And we got to get rid of all these government agencies and departments. We got to reform entitlements, which means, unfortunately, we're going to have to get rid of them for a lot of people. We got to lay off a lot of government workers. We have to cut the defense budget. We have to make government much smaller. Right? We have to really get rid of regulations and taxes and create or recreate the free market economy that we had that made us great in the first place. But in the short run, you can't go from a borrow and spend economy to a saving and producing economy without the transitionary effects of that. Right? We've been living beyond our means for a long time. It's almost a habit for most Americans. They take it for granted that they can buy whatever they want, even though they have no money. That they could just use a credit card, that they don't have to save, that they don't have to really work, that they could just pretend to work. So all this has to change, but so far none of that has happened. And it's probably a little bit too late for Trump to do that, although I see no indication that he would even move in that direction. I mean, he is so caught up in this bubble now, in the stock market. He's branded it. Might as well. The stock market has a big T on it for Trump, like one of his buildings, and the economy. And so when it comes crashing down, I mean, to me, it's just like his casinos in Atlantic City.
So we talk about cutting tax rates here. I mean, you're talking about putting $2,000 in the average person's pocket. I know $2,000, and according to Nancy Pelosi, that's really nothing anyway. But it's better than anything I've seen anyone else do. I mean, what else can you do to ignite this thing? I mean, we're not going to save anyway. We're not conditioned to save money no matter what.
But you can't cut taxes and not cut government spending, because taxes pay for government.
Here's your inflation. Yeah.
And so if you're just going to cut people's taxes, but say we're not going to eliminate any government. In fact, under the Trump administration, the government is getting bigger. So they're increasing the size of government and the amount of government spending, and they're reducing the taxes. So how is that government going to be paid for? It has to be paid for. So the government is going to pay for it by creating debt and by creating inflation. And the truth is that paying for government with debt and inflation is more expensive than current taxation. So all the people who are getting a tax cut are really getting a bill. Right? We're just putting this government on a credit card. And when you put things on a credit card, you don't get it for free. It's actually more expensive because now you have to make the interest payments. So this is not something for nothing. This is a bad deal that voters are getting. They just don't understand how bad it is. And Trump is taking credit for it, and it is not good. I like lower taxes, but only if we have smaller government. So that means if you shrink government, you can relieve the taxpayers of the burden of paying for it. But you can't have all the government and then just cut the taxes. That's the Republicans' version of a free lunch, right? And there is no free lunch.
So I know you've been a gold guy here, and I associate your name with gold. You're going to do a crypto gold debate here pretty quick. I got to get a little prelude to this. You're not a cryptocurrency guy.
Well, I don't even think, even the Bitcoins now say it's not a cryptocurrency, it's a crypto asset, because it's too expensive to actually try to use it. When they first came up with it and hardly anybody had it, you could actually make the transactions, although there was still a lot of volatility, so it was too volatile to actually be a medium of exchange. But at least in theory, you could make a transaction. Now you can't do that because it's prohibitively expensive. So now they're saying, well, it's digital gold. Except no, it's not, because it doesn't have any of the properties that gives gold value. It's not an element, it's not a real commodity, it has no use in the real world. All you can do is give it to somebody else, but they'll only take it if they think they can give it to somebody else. It's just a classic, pyramid or Ponzi scheme, and the whole thing is going to implode. Now, I don't know exactly when. there is a very good chance that we've already topped out, and it's a question of when does the bottom drop out. But it's also possible that we can have another run. I don't know. I'm not that smart, but I am smart enough to know what it is. And I think most of the people who have drunk the Kool-Aid of the cryptocurrencies, and they're like fanatics about it. It's like a cult. And I see all the characteristics among people who own cryptocurrencies that I saw in people who are speccing real estate in that bubble or the dot-coms, except this one is even a bigger bubble. Not necessarily bigger in the size of it, but it's a bigger bubble in that what people believe is so utterly ridiculous and so obviously ridiculous, but their own greed is preventing them from seeing it. They build a wall around them of cognitive dissonance. So that's why it's like a religion, because they don't listen to logic, because there is no logical way to justify the values of these tokens, right?
So what's flawed here? Tying gold to this? This seems like a checkmate against central bankers.
No, it's going to make the central bankers look good when they all collapse. You know, I mean, it's hard to make them look good, but these cryptocurrencies will. And then the governments will say, oh, we told you so. See how bad capitalism is? It created this scam. You know, I mean, cryptocurrencies would work if they were real currencies backed by gold, right? But they don't. No, they're not doing that. They're just making them backed by nothing. The dollar's backed by nothing. So there's no improvement there. But at least the dollar is legal tender. The dollar has a long history of use and acceptance. The day-to-day fluctuation is very small. Even if it's going down slowly, so people can still transact in dollars. So Bitcoin is not an improvement on the dollar. A gold-backed Bitcoin would. But then there's no excitement there. You can't get rich quickly buying gold. Gold is to keep you from going broke, right? But you have so many people now buying these cryptocurrencies because they think they're going to get rich. That's the scam of it.
Well, before I let you go here, I got to have you guide gold here. If we're on New Year's Eve, where are we at?
Well, we're like 1330 right now. I mean, look, once we break above, the 1350-ish is kind of like the key resistance. If we can get above that and sustain a move above 1400, I think it's off to the races. I mean, I think you'll start seeing gold move $50, $100 a day. Once it breaks out, there's no stopping it. I mean, it'll have some resistance at the 1900 high from 2011. But once we take that out, we're gone.